Hi everyone, I'm Mike. This is the Sunday Art Show, and this week I'm going to create a surreal painting inspired by the artist 1000. So this is some of 1000's amazing work, really original, really vibrant. He does a wide range of designs. He's also got around about 500,000 subscribers on YouTube, and recently he did an art prompt announcement video for a competition. So the art prompt is reaching new heights. So the idea is you create a painting on that theme, reaching new heights, and then send it in to him. So I wanted to do something which was still in my style, but might still be suitable for the competition. So I'm just putting up some of my surreal paintings. So I've got a belted Galloway cow in amongst kite borders here, not something you normally see. Is this a tiny sheep, or are these giant bananas and vegetables? So this is the kind of surreal art I play around with once in a while. Something I really enjoy. It's a little bit different to what I normally do, but I kind of feel, I could do something along these lines. And what I want to do is some belted Galloway cows in amongst flowers, but I'm going to have one of the cows climbing up really high on the flowers. So that would be in keeping with the theme, reaching new heights. So I head out to the garden, lots of colour, lots of different types of flowers. These weird conical blue flowers, for example. I don't know the names, I'm not a great gardener. And I take a pretty big canvas and my watercolours. Now normally I don't work on canvas with watercolours, so I thought that would be kind of a bit of a different twist as well, so I can kind of learn something too. And I just start by grabbing my big synthetic round mop brush. It comes to a lovely point but holds loads of paint. And I'm just mixing up kind of a purpley brown with some of the dregs from a previous painting. So to begin with, I'm going to try and draw some of these kind of green pods that I'm showing on screen at the moment. And I love drawing with a brush. And one of the great things I've found from making these YouTube videos is, whereas normally I would put paintings away, whether complete or partly finished, into a portfolio for several weeks or months, and then when I look at them again with fresh eyes, you often see them from a slightly different perspective, and you think, oh, I could change that, or I could finish this painting. But with the YouTube videos, when I watch them back, obviously I get to see the whole development of the painting. So watching this footage back has really made me want to do more drawing with the brush and watercolour. I just love the way the different character of line that a brush gives you compared to a marker pen or a pencil. So recently I've been doing this animal alphabet challenge, and that's nearly over. I've just got one more episode to do. But in that I've been doing a lot of drawing with a Sharpie pen. Really enjoyed that, learnt a lot. But as I say, I'm going to start drawing more and more with the brush, I think, with watercolour. Plants, animals, people, crowds, town scenes, landscapes. I'd like to give it all a go. And working on this big size as well, you can still be pretty precise with the larger brush. But having done the pods, next up, let's have a go at those blue flowers that I just showed on screen. And just with a flick of the wrist when working on this scale, you can really cover, quite a large area. So what I'm doing is, I'm not copying the exact arrangement of the flowers or the plants in the garden. I'm just taking my inspiration from those plants. And then I'm placing different blooms and stalks in an arrangement on the page, which I hope, not the page, on the canvas, which I hope will look reasonably natural and organic, as if these plants could have grown and mingled and intertwined amongst each other. Having done two of those blue flowers opened up, I thought I'd add one which is kind of closed up as well, because obviously plants aren't always picture perfect. I think these are called fuchsia, but somebody can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below, please. So the ones with the magenta leaves, so I'm going to add a few of those. And what I'm doing is, for each plant, I'm just subtly changing the colour of paint I use. If a bit more Alizarin crimson goes in there, that's fine. If a bit more ultramarine blue goes in there, that's fine. And it's really good working with the watercolour on the textured surface of the canvas, because it gives the lines so much character. There are dry brush bits, there are bits where the paint pools, there are bits where the brush skips across the texture, and so there are gaps in the line. So that's something I'm really happy with. And I don't know if I'm going to work on canvas a lot in the future with watercolour, but definitely want to get some really heavily textured paper, I think, to kind of exploit that characteristic. So adding another one of the same flower, bottom left corner. So what I'm trying to create here, in terms of my vision for the final painting, is an almost dreamlike, surreal plantscape. So it won't really be totally clear, possibly quite what's going on in certain areas, but there will definitely be recognizable plants and leaves and things. So putting a big leaf here in the bottom right corner. And then the plan is to have 4 or 5 belted Galloway cows painted and drawn really quite simply, dotted around the lower part of the painting. So some will be on the ground, some will be on the lower leaves and plants. And then my plan is to have one belted Galloway cow right up high on top of a bloom. So I'm going to paint the hydrangea now, these kind of bundles of yellow flowers. Hydrangeas have a huge range of colours as they go through their sort of life cycle, but I'm just going to paint them yellow. So that the head of the flower is a kind of mass of little flowers, but I'm just painting the mass as a whole here in this kind of reddish brown. So my plan is to stick a belted Galloway cow up on top of that mass of flowers there. So, and then my hope is that that's going to be in keeping with the theme reaching new heights. So the idea is that the cows are climbing the plants. Top right corner, just including some of those weird blue conical flowers that I showed at the beginning of the video. Again, very, very loose treatment. But you can see how quickly with the brush and the watercolour you can just, fire out a pattern and some line, and the paint kind of does its own thing. And I really, really enjoy it. So we're almost done with the composition aspect now, just filling in a few gaps. Next I need to fill in some of the negative space, the space created by the gaps between the flowers and the plants. Now, on watercolour paper, it's really easy to put down a nice clean wash if you know what you're doing and you're reasonably careful. But the texture of this canvas, this primed canvas, kind of repels the paint a bit, causes it to pull, creates interesting textures, creates interesting gaps and bubbles in the paint, and I'm totally happy with that. So I'm putting in reasonably dark colours, not going too crazy, blues, purples, deep browns. My hope being that if I do put pops of yellow and magenta in for the plants later, and obviously some greens, then they'll stand out reasonably well and contrast reasonably well with the relatively dark background that I'm putting in. So these textures, I'm hoping, are going to help add to the surreal nature of the painting and the kind of the dreamlike nature. So it's meant to be something out of the imagination as much as it is a representation. So having filled in the background, I'm now switching to almost straight out of the tube cadmium yellow. And I put that on reasonably heavily. I've switched to a smaller brush now. But having done that initial mark, I think now I want to loosen it up. Keep with the kind of loose and lively washes theme. So I'm just kind of diluting that mixture and then spreading it rather more randomly around the bloom of that hydrangea. So that pop of yellow, as I said earlier, it's kind of standing out quite nicely against the darker background. Now, belted Galloway cattle have been a favourite subject of mine for some time. I paint them in watercolour and acrylic. I paint them in a realistic way and also in a kind of tweaked reality way, stretching the subdued highlights under stormy skies, impressionism, I like experimenting with these animals. I think they're almost living cartoons, just some in the background of that painting. Sometimes I experiment with more of a design style, or I put an animal in amongst a townscape in a weird environment, an outdoor cafe, for example. So this is the kind of surreal feel I want to get, but I'm looking to stretch it a little bit further in this painting. Here we have belted Galloways up amongst the sky and the clouds. And then here, wandering amongst the pedestrians in an overgrown townscape. So here is the watercolour painting so far. So you can see it's incredibly loose. But we've got these, delicious kind of, areas where the colour has bled. We have this wonderful kind of cauliflower effect here. And my plan is to include some belted Galloway cattle kind of hidden within the undergrowth and climbing up on the plants. And so this is meant to be a surreal kind of world within which the belted Galloways have somehow magically, or however they've done it, they've managed to climb. And then I'll put one just at the very top here. So I've used a watercolour marker pen. You can see I've outlined a belted Galloway cow here down the bottom, the front of a cow here coming out, and then I've put a belty just lying down on top of this leaf here. And then where I had that cauliflower, I've put a much smaller belty, so as if that guy is off in the distance. It's just a very simple treatment. You can see I've just put the silhouette in. And then finally, right at the top, I've begun to indicate yet another belty. So if we look at the thing as a whole, when I've finished it, there'll be a belty there, there, there. Then there's a small one here, kind of as a clue to the fact that there's going to be one right at the top. So it's super weird. But let me finish this off with some more marker pen and a little bit of watercolour, and we'll see what the finished effect is. So there's a close-up of the very simple treatment that I've given these cattle. Blue watercolour marker, and then just a touch of interactive acrylic on the middle of the back where the white stripe would be. You can see I've got a little tiny cow there on top of that bloom that I mentioned earlier. And then right at the top, this little guy up on top of the hydrangea. So the plants are very loosely suggested in this impressionism, wild and loose style. But then there are these weird cattle kind of intermingled and climbing up the foliage. So here's my submission. Email 21000. I put, you may need to zoom in to see what's going on at the top, because I'm slightly concerned perhaps somebody who hadn't seen the process might not actually get it at first glance. But anyway, sent it in. Who knows what's going to happen, but good fun, and got to be in it to win it. So either way, I'm really glad I created the painting inspired by the art prompt. So yeah, as I said at the start of the video, you should definitely check out his channel. So I decided to call this one Belties Reaching New Heights, Can You See Us? So I've kind of incorporated the art prompt within the title, but the Can You See Us is hopefully an invitation to kind of look a bit more deeply than you would at first glance. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe, and I hope to see you next Sunday for the next episode of the Sunday Art Show. Thanks very much for watching.